for Wednesday, December 13th, 2017. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted?
Yes.
Okay, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item, item 4, is public appearances, public's opportunity to speak about any subject that's not a specific agenda item. I don't believe we had any tonight.
No.
Okay. Item 5, discuss and consider the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting of November 3rd and of November 29th, 2017. There's 2 separate documents. First is November 8th. Any comments, corrections, additions? Hey, Jennifer.
I move approval of both sets of minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Point of order, I plan to abstain since I was not here on the 8th, but not on the 29th.
Okay.
So perhaps we should do them
Just
separately.
do it separate if you're going to abstain.
If that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, we have a motion and a second then to approve the November 8th, 2017 Plan Commission minutes as presented. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Abstentions, 1 abstention. Mick? Okay, motion passes. On to November 29th Plan Commission minutes. Any questions, comments? No? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve the Plan Commission minutes for November 29th. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. At this time, I'll open a public hearing. This is to gather input from the public regarding an application for a conditional use permit for an in-vehicle sales and service land use, which is a gas station and fuel pumps from Casey's General Store on parcel 071108141201, the northwest corner of West Cottage Grove Road and Sandpiper Trail. Is the developer here, the owner, Kevin? Okay, we do have some people that registered to speak. Kevin, I'll let you come up first. If you'd sit up here and introduce yourself for the camera.
Where's the camera?
Up there.
Okay. Kevin Metcalf. I live at 412 Midland Lane in Monona. I'm one of the property owners of the property here in question with Casey's proposed use on it. I moved out to Cottage Grove about 14 years ago. I actually built some of the duplexes along the back side on Galloway there. And took that over a couple of years. Loved Cottage Grove. Looked out my backyard, saw that commercial property, and thought it would be a great opportunity to do something in Cottage Grove. So we got some other partners involved, and we bought that land. Went through the planning commission, or the village planning commission, with rave reviews. I think, if I remember, Mike Slaveny saying it was probably one of the best designs he's seen in a long time. We were really excited about that. Fast forward from that point about 12 years, and 0 offers, 0 letter of intents. I'm now $2 cheaper than I even bought the property for, listing it for sale, and we were just kind of at our, at inroads with the property. That's not including any taxes or interest carry or anything like that. So, we've gone through 3 brokers trying to get different tenants to come out over the time, that same time frame. And Casey's, we finally got an opportunity for Casey's to come out there. And, I think development will happen over time, obviously. I think if Casey's is, I think is a great opportunity. I think that's going to spur some additional development that will allow us to actually bring forward perhaps what we wanted to do in the first place and start with. So it's our hope that people look beyond gas pumps and see that it's a quality company, quality organization, and an upscale market that happens to sell gas. I'm also hoping that we look forward to the opportunities that maybe Casey's will bring to the market, to Cottage Grove, to this land, and there's additional over 2 acres of additional development there. We have an interest in continuing to try to develop this property. It's also up for sale if others are interested and have a better idea for something that they want to put on there. But for now, that's our hope that Casey's is approved and that we can move forward and perhaps do something even greater on the other part of the parcel that people are actually looking forward to. So.
Thank you. We have a couple of other people that registered.
Jeff, we do have the project engineer and then someone from Casey's here as well.
Sure. If you have a presentation, absolutely come up here. And yes, sir.
I also add my name to the list.
Okay.
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't see it.
Put it on settings, I guess.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Zach Michaels, and I'm here representing Core States Group. We're the consultant engineer on the project.
Okay.
And I'm Kendra Meyer. I'm with Casey's General Stores. I'm a real estate associate, and I have the state of Wisconsin. So I'm very familiar with the Village of Cottage Grove. This was a site that I personally picked out. And I am here to answer any questions you might have about Casey's, the company, or specifically about the site and the location, in addition to any design questions that you may have as well. And definitely background if you'd prefer to. It's kind of up to
So there's a fair amount of electronic links in our packet. I think we got quite a
Yeah,
stack
I
of
think so,
paperwork.
too.
Any comments or questions from any plan commission members?
Yes.
Nick?
I have several that just didn't seem to be clear from what you have in the packet. What are the how many pumps and how many fueling positions are you going to have?
answer that.
I can, if you look at the layout right now, there's pumps right now. I believe there's 6 different fueling stations, fueling pumps, and they each have 2 pumps on it, or 6 stations with 2 pumps, so 12 total.
Also, how are you planning to bring in the fuel delivery? That's not clear on what you presented. How are you getting a truck in there of the length you'll need into your Casey development from the street, from Cottage Grove Road?
It'll come off of Cottage Grove Road, or it'll come off of Sandpiper Trail. We have 2 proposed. We have an entrance coming off there, and we open those up enough on the radius of those entrances and those drives in order for trucks to make it into the site. We actually have a program on our computer that runs those kind of programs that brings in those fuel trucks and makes sure that we can navigate around the entire site. So it can actually do a loop around the entire canopy and then go out both entrances if need be.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me, because it appears you're not developing or going to construct the road behind, except for just enough space to come in or enough to come into to the Casey store. So I guess it's not clear to me how you're really getting it in. You're thinking you're coming that right in, right out?
It could come in that right in, right out, and it also could come in off of the entrance off the Sandpiper Trail.
And there's enough room to actually maneuver around there when you have customers and get back out?
Yes, I mean, we run those programs, and it's part of the program we do, part of the process we do before we do any kind of parking lot layout, because off the Sandpiper Trail, the parking is mostly towards the front of the building, so that area is very wide open there. There isn't any public parking in that area. It's all around the convenience store itself.
Okay.
The construction of the access off Sandpiper Trail, I mean, if you look down at what was constructed when CVS went in, there's actually a connection road that comes down behind CVS, so you can get down to, I think it's Court Crossing. And it looks to me like you're really trying to put off into the next company that wants to build there, or retailer that wants to build there, a lot of these construction costs. Why aren't you going to go ahead and just construct all of that now?
I was going to say, I'm happy to speak to that too. And this was part of our conversations that we had with the landowner too, as we would construct what we need plus some additional, so the access that we have off Cottage Grove Road we designed our site so that, well, we didn't fully need that access or that full extension of that road at the time, but we designed our site with the anticipation that there would be future development throughout that entire remaining, I think, just 2.5 acres. And so the thought was we would contribute to that, we would pay for all of that, and provide an easement for that area for future development, hopefully spur future development as well. And then we would construct what we needed with the above portion, and then we would also, from a maintenance standpoint, whoever were to come in the future, we would share those maintenance costs. But it would be up to the next developer or landowner to construct that additional access point and an extension off of Sandpiper.
Well, that's the point I have. You're putting a lot of burden on the next person coming in, which you will really benefit from what I can tell, because you're putting a very minimum amount of access in, and then you're expecting whoever comes in next to you to build out the entire road from Cork all the way down to where you're at. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. We don't, the site and the way that we looked at the site was that we didn't necessarily anticipate immediate access, or, I mean, it'd be nice at some point, of course, to have that, to see that entire plot be developed, but we don't anticipate that we will get an excessive amount of customers coming off of that secondary or that third access point.
Okay.
Given that we are on the northwest corner up there, we just anticipate that we will use those main 2 access points. And then the point, or the access point that is off Cottage Grove Road can be used for additional development too. And we will pay for the full construction and development of that as well.
Well, when I look at it, it looks like you're not going to be constructing the area that's next to your building on the west side. That's just going to be left open. That's just undeveloped area until you eventually decide to develop it when the next customer comes in and builds all the way down. Is that right? You're just going to leave it vacant and open?
Yeah, right now, what the plan is to leave that portion where the future road, where that future extension of that road would be. We would leave it about a foot elevation lower than final, which is final whenever that road would be there. It'll be down a foot in order for the contractor to come in and do the proper materialing and everything of concrete in order to extend that road to the next parcel.
How do we know that'll ever occur?
Sorry?
How do we know here at the village that will ever occur, that you'll actually do that and finish off your site?
Well, the way that, I guess the way that we're looking at this site right now is that we are developing the access off Cottage Grove Road for future development, and that will extend to I believe it's to the end of our store. And at that point, anybody that were to come in, I mean, it's not a very long extension for that road. And one of the main access points, which is off Cottage Grove Road, will have already been paved. The easements will be in place, and we will share those maintenance costs with whoever it is that is interested in coming in there in the future. But it doesn't really, I guess the way that we look at it is having that access point go all the way around behind our store and back through to meet the Cottage Grove. Or it just, we don't see the benefit to having that there. It just adds additional concrete that isn't being utilized. We don't anticipate.
I have more questions.
You got one?
How are you addressing the ocular effects of your lighting on the site?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
The ocular effects that you're going to have with your site, how do you plan to address that?
We have another vendor that does our lighting for us. They prepare 3D renderings for us of how, when we put our site lighting in, how they'll extend, and we can actually provide those. It'll show how far the lights will extend beyond our property line, and we don't anticipate that to extend at all beyond our property line. And they're positioned in such a way that they don't disturb anything other than our property.
I believe that's one of our requirements.
I think so, yeah.
And that set of drawings should be in the packet.
Yeah.
And just kind of to leapfrog off of that, all of our lighting, we understand that there are neighbors nearby. We see that that can be very much a concern, so we want to make sure that it is very clear that all of our lighting will be contained within our lot line. And another reason why at this point having additional concrete on the back side of our store, it just would add additional lighting that might not need to be there right now. But everything that we will have within our canopy and on our site will be contained within our lot line to keep from spilling over into other properties and neighboring properties.
Now, dealing with the, you stated that you expect to have 900 customers a day. I think the traffic count's, what, about 9,000 or so right now, on that?
8 on Cottage Grove, 8,000.
8,000? Okay, so you're looking at, out of 8,000 cars going by a day, you're expecting to have 900 of those pull into your site per day. Is that correct?
Well, I think that the anticipation would be that not only would we pull vehicles from that area, but also from housing nearby. I mean, a big thing with Casey's General Stores is we're not just a convenience store with fuel. We have a strong food program, which we're very proud of. We're the 5th largest pizza chain in the United States, and it's something we make the bread, or we make the dough every day in our store. It's not frozen, it is fresh. We pride ourselves on the made-to-order sandwiches and wraps and salads, and everything that we provide is, in our minds, beyond what you would see in a standard convenience store. So we generally do see additional walk-up traffic. So it might not just be vehicles that we would see, we would anticipate to see walk-up traffic from nearby neighboring properties as well.
I'll tell you what troubles me about it is if you look at what we have on Cottage Grove Road from end down to where your site's at, we have 3 with you, we would have 3 convenience stores, all trying to pull in the 8,000 cars that drive by, because that's what you have from end down to where you're at, 8,000 total. So you have 3 of them that are doing that. Your site is only 0.22 miles away from the BP site, which is less than a quarter of a mile, and you're only a third of a mile away from the Piggly Wiggly. It just, I don't know, I mean, when the kind of counts you're looking at seem very low for the type of operation that you're wanting to put in. I mean, have less than even 10,000 counts per day there to be putting in what you're putting in with the size of operation you're putting in, just seems to me to be very low. The other thing that troubles me too is I don't really see a landscaping streetscape type plan for what you're doing. And if you look at the BP station that has some more mature type trees and shrubs and what that are out front, so when you drive by, it's not like you're looking right into the pumps. I can only go off what you have here, but it appears from your site you would just have a direct look right. You'd be looking right at the pumps, and that there wouldn't be the streetscape that we currently have down at the BP. Is that correct?
We provided a full landscape plan with the package for our civil drawings, and we put more mature trees along. We have a buffer strip of grass along that entire cornerway of Sandpiper Trail and Cottage Grove Road, and it extends, and we have more mature trees proposed in that area, actually larger ones, for that reason. And to help with screening issues also between us and the property to our north, we actually have a 7-foot tall screening fence proposed to help with screening issues also. But as far as landscaping, we do have a full landscape plan provided, and there should be adequate number of trees. We met and actually exceeded the requirements set forth in the zoning code.
If I may, now I'd like to move to the comp plan and take a look at that. I mean, you're asking for a conditional use, which means you need to meet the requirements of the comp plan. And when I look at the comp plan, the type of area you're in, which is this planned business area, the comp plan states that we should try to encourage planned business development that occurs along BB that contributes toward establishing and enhancing a positive image of the village. The developments that are built along these corridors and surrounding interstate areas, which is going down to dealing with another 94, not where you're at, along these corridors are highly visible to residents and visitors and can help establish an attractive image for the village. Also, the plan states that as part of that strategy that we try to limit the setbacks and encourage parking behind buildings to bring the buildings closer to the corridor. Explain to me how you really enhance the village and how your development moves the parking closer, encourages parking behind and moves the buildings closer to the corridor.
Well, I will answer the first question as far as how we're contributing to the village. We're investing, it's a expensive village, or expensive building, and we're investing time and effort and money into a building that will bring additional employment and tax revenue to the village here. And the design that we have chosen has also been in conjunction with working with the property owner to ensure that it meets not only what the code requires, but what we feel like enhances the village from a visual perspective as well. Having more of a pitched roof than maybe what our standard site design might be. So from that perspective, Casey's, and then just some more history about Casey's. I mean, most of our growth has been in smaller towns. Generally, 60% of our stores are in towns with less than 5,000 people. So our model is we're very aware of what we anticipate to do, and obviously with Cottage Grove having almost 7,000 people, we're not too far off. But we know and we can anticipate how our business will do in smaller villages, and we see that Cottage Grove Road being a main thoroughfare from Madison into Cottage Grove Road, and anticipate that not only will there be future development, commercial development, but there will also be future residential development to the north, and that those traffic counts will continue to grow. So I guess that was kind of going back to your question prior in regards to having a few C-stores within a close proximity.
Under the comp plan, it states that extra deep building setbacks should be avoided. How far is your building from the street? How many feet?
I don't have the plan in front of me, so I don't know off the top of my head. I apologize, but it's in all of our setbacks are located on. I'm sorry. All of our setbacks are located on the site plan and how we meet them and exceed them. And I can't. Apologize, I can't comment exactly what the setbacks are on the top of my head, but I know they're on the existing site plan.
It also states in the comp plan, where possible, parking lots should be placed behind buildings to lessen their visual impact on the community. And I don't think you're meeting that requirement. Also, it states the village will carefully consider the impact of proposed commercial rezonings on the economic viability of existing commercial areas before it makes a decision on the rezoning request.
I guess to comment about the parking layout, you talked earlier about pushing the parking towards the back of the building or moving the building closer towards the road for visibility also. It kind of goes hand in hand with the larger vehicles that are coming into the site too. And in order to meet the certain requirements, because we have requirements of we need green space on Cottage Road and we need green space on Sandpiper Trail that's pushing us out. And then not only that, we have to bring in these larger trucks that have to maneuver around the entire site, and those areas around the fuel pumps are just not they're not safe spaces for parking public to be around, and it pushes us out farther to that corner that we're in now. And with the building being having a frontage on Cottage Grove Road, we try to put parking up front in front of Cottage Grove and around the side instead of in the back, as far as ease of access, especially with ADA spots. We try to keep our ADA compliant spots closer to the front. It just makes it easier on any kind of customer that we have.
And that will, again, allow for future development and the extension of that road behind our store.
I'll tell you what troubles me about the development is that I just don't think it fits the vision of what's in the comp plan. And are you willing to put your parking and your pumps behind the building?
I guess it's something we could look into, but have never really considered.
I feel like I would have more concern. I mean, that would, to me, be more concern to the neighboring properties to the north if we were to turn our pumps that way. There is obviously, for safety purposes, there is more light directly beneath those pumps. And though it doesn't spill over the lot line, I would be hesitant unless there was a greater need to turn those the other way.
I believe the fueling canopy is probably the portion of the site that's emitting the most light, because we try to keep those as far as a safety concern. So if we would move them part of the north, it's just another visual for the neighbors and things like that.
Any other
What, John? It looks like you potentially might go 24/7. Is there a certain trigger that would require you to be open 24 hours a day?
There's not. The majority of our stores are not open. It's 24 hours. It's generally more of a 5 a.m. to an 11 p.m. We look at larger towns, larger cities, and depending on if there are other convenience stores in the area and what their hours are, that sometimes is what might sway us to be open later, or if we feel the need, again, if there's the traffic count or the population count, that might be what would sway us. So, and I don't think that this store has necessarily been decided yet whether or not it would be a 24-hour location. So definitely something that we could also take into consideration.
Thanks. And my second question for this portion is, has the stormwater management report been submitted yet?
We don't have a stormwater management report for the new site, but the stormwater management system for this, an update on that is that there is a regional basin over by the post office that collects the drainage from the back 48-inch pipe. That would be the easement north of the road that was discussed, and that in that the pond handles the rate control for this site and the water quality. So the one thing that they would have to put on their site, well, we usually check here on the site plan, is there enough room for that? It would be infiltration. And I believe in talking with the engineer, he's worked with the same type of system that just went in at Rainbow Daycare, which is under parking.
Yes,
And
it's
so-
underground storage facilities that help infiltration out. So some of the stormwater on site will go underground to these systems, and based on the infiltration rates we have, we'll meet the requirements needed, and anything, there'll be an emergency overflow that'll go into the existing public system. So.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? Questions? Brett?
Do you know what percentage of sales historically are grocery?
I do not know offhand, and we have it broken down a little bit further into those categories. But I can say that we have a very strong food presence, and that is what we are known for in a lot of our towns, far beyond fuel. And recently we rolled out our online ordering for pizza and pizza delivery as well, pizza, sandwich, and everything delivery. So that just goes to show how much we truly value what we do with our fresh food program.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else from Casey's that's here to speak? No? Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one question,
Okay.
and it has to do with...
So you're going to have to stand up and identify yourself.
Okay.
Jack, maybe you just could invite the audience to now begin their questions.
Sure. Okay.
Richard Norgord.
Okay.
I'm a owner of one of the units
Okay.
approaching, and my only concern is with children walking down that path, the front end of that path, because they're doing it all the time, and I'm only issued about the concern for them.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thank you.
Especially because they're gonna build an elementary school up towards Stacy Dental.
Sir, can you stand up? This is public comment, but we need everybody to identify themselves.
Yeah, I'm another homeowner on Galway Terrace right in back. And,
What's your name?
well, it's Brianna Griesbach, actually. There's a lot of children coming down from Glacial Drummond School, and in the future, long-term plan, I believe they're talking about building an elementary school beyond towards Stacy Dental, and some land has been targeted for that. So what provision would be made for, the children, all these cars coming in and out? What provision for the children coming by? Does the village have to give additional safety guards, or would this be a controlled intersection at the end of Sandpiper with a stop and go light, or would it be how would that be configured? And also, what are the people in Galloway Terrace, what are they going to be seeing in their backyards? And what is this going to look like? I guess I shouldn't be worried. I mean, I just got my tax bill today, and the city keeps telling me the value of my house is going up. But we are concerned about the value of our property and what we're going to be looking at.
Any other questions from the audience, comments? We do have some people registered to speak. Sir?
I just have one quick question. I think, do we know what petroleum company is going to be supplying the fuel?
We supply and distribute 80% of our own fuel, and then we use common carriers for roughly 20% of our own fuel.
But I mean, what company? Is this a BP station or what kind of?
It's our own. I mean, we blend our own, so it's our own petroleum, and we guarantee our fuel as well.
Okay. We do have some people registered to speak if you have anything further, but at this point, I guess, thank you.
Thank you.
First person we have is Joe Olson, 701 Sandpiper, wishes to speak against. Joe?
Do you want me to go?
Yep. We try to keep it about 3 minutes for public comment. if we could.
I've got it all scripted.
All right.
We're good. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I guess I'd like to start by saying I know Kevin, I've known him for a long time, and I really understand the desire and support the desire to fill that space with something. I have been in the Quail Highlands on Sandpiper for 14 years, and it has been vacant for 14 years. The concerns that I have are regarding the conditional use permit and allowing the gas station. Some of my concerns surrounding this would be the development means adding the underground gas tanks. There always is a risk of leaking. Gas spills happen at the pumps, and this is a risk of contamination and affecting the environment and potentially drinking water. Additionally, with the rezoning, putting the gas pumps in there, I do have the same concerns as some have already spoke with as far as the loss in home values potentially with something like that going up so close to the neighboring homes, as well as the fact that we do have the school so close. There's a lot of foot traffic. A lot of those kids travel down Cottage Grove Road versus going through the neighborhoods. And they're kids. They're not necessarily paying attention to the cars that are coming in and out. And those are kids walking and on bikes. I know that Mike spoke to the fact that we do have 3 gas stations in less than a mile. From what I've read, it looks like with that gap analysis that we're saying that indeed there is a demand. This community, I think the majority of the people travel outside for jobs. So I don't know that there's necessarily the demand always in town for the pumps. A lot of people will travel to work and fill up on their way home. Nothing against the gas stations in Cottage Grove, but a lot of times you can find it cheaper if you do get outside of the village. Additionally, what if this business is not successful? We talked a little bit about the food part of it, the pizza delivery, etc. We do have quite a bit of pizza in the community already. It's a great add-on, but what if they're not successful? Then we're not left with just a vacant building, but we're left with gas pumps as well.
Yeah, we're 30 seconds yet.
30 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay. The 24/7 concerned, don't know that I want a station open on the corner of my street all night long. And again, with the facade of the building, just making sure it's in alignment with what everyone in Quail Highlands has had to do with their houses, which has been very specific. I really want something that is appealing and will enhance when you're driving into that neighborhood, not the typical cases, or a lot of them that I've seen. I don't feel really match what the covenants are.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Patrick McDowell wishes to speak. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Patrick McDowell. I'm a resident of Cottage Grove. I've been here for 12 years, and I'm 2 blocks north of the proposed gas station. I don't have anything against a business looking to come in there. I think it's great. I've been here long enough to see a lot of empty lots, and there's been a lot of demand and needs amongst people to get some businesses in there, more restaurants, things like that. I guess some of my concerns are similar to what other people have stated here. The proximity of other gas stations. It looks like this would be the proposed, this would be a 5th gas station, probably within less than 5 miles. I don't understand the logic behind that. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure what the population of the village of Cottage Grove is, but last I knew it was around 5,500. So to have 5 gas stations to service 5,500 people seems extremely excessive, in my opinion, especially when you consider that the next closest one is 0.2 miles away. I do have some of the safety concerns as far as the pumps in the ground, especially in proximity to the schools around here. I also have a question about the study, the findings of the study, and I believe it was the first PDF that's listed in the agenda about, this is something that Jill had brought up too, is about the need for more gas stations. I don't see the need for more gas stations if we already have 4 servicing 5,500 people. I don't understand the need for that. I don't know who came up with the findings, whether it's a planning commission. It just, again, it seems very, seems like a lot of gas stations. I also have some traffic concerns with the school. I was here long enough to see Glacial Drummond School go up and be built, and I see a lot of kids coming down there, going to McDonald's, going to CVS, going to the gas station to get candy, things like that. So there's concerns with schools, the proximity of the school and the kids, the foot traffic, the pedestrian traffic, and then another concern of mine is I'm sure that this is within the realm of what's adequate for notification of this, but my understanding is there's only 200 people notified about this meeting tonight. 200 people got mailed flyers, and it seems to me like this affects more than 200 people, so it would have been nice to have. Again, I'm only 2 blocks away from this, but I was not notified. I was notified via social media of this. So I guess that should have been more on people's radars. I think people within that neighborhood, once they realize that this is an actual possibility, they might be more objective to that. I think having the communication is always a good thing. So I guess that's all I really had to say is I would voice some concerns about it. Again, I'm not out against Casey's. I'm not out against somebody trying to develop the land. I just I can't see the justification for a need for a 5th gas station for the population that we have. So
Thank you.
that's all I have. Thanks.
All right.
Just jump in and address the notification issue.
Yep.
By ordinance, we invite landowners within 200 feet. I guess if the plan commission thinks we should be expanding that, that's something we can talk about, but it would have to be changed in the ordinance, and I don't think we can do that on a case-by-case business.
Okay.
What about the notification in the newspaper? I understand that shouldn't have to do that.
The notice when it was in the paper, it's not in the Independent Herald, it's in the Capital Times.
Sure, yeah, it's in the Capital Times, not the Journal, not the Herald.
Right. Okay. All right, Steve Anders, do you want to speak?
Mr. Chairman, my wife is also scheduled to speak. Can she speak in front of me first and then?
She can go first. You're both registered, so that's fine.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Albers Anders. I'm married to that guy you were just talking to. And Kevin over here was my other half because I own a half a duplex, 504 Galway. And Kevin was in the other half when I purchased the half that I own. I have a tenant in the half. And I guess my concerns, and I did get some information from Aaron Ruth, and I appreciate that. My concern was drainage. I'm a farm girl, and it kept saying it was draining to the southwest, and I was looking out there going, yeah, but it goes up hills to the CVS. And then Aaron, I saw his note today that said that was an error. It goes to the southeast, so I feel a little better about that. But nonetheless, I don't know where the impervious surface runoff is supposed to go. I have a finished basement. I think some of my neighbors next to me have finished basements. I guess I want to make sure that whatever the volume of runoff is, it's not going to end up in my basement and make my basement,
Sure.
no longer inhabitable. So whatever the plan is for the volume of runoff, I guess I'd like to see that, and I could weigh judgment on that, but I want to know that it comes out in my favor, right? The second thing is, I work at Department of Corrections now. I'm a former legislator. I don't want to say that a gas station itself is a bad thing, but I do know that 24/7 is not a good thing. And I don't know what the right hours are. I don't know if there's crime rates that one can look at to say certain types of things in communities are a real draw. But I'm on the backside of this, and I'm just concerned. So if they could live with their, I think they mentioned 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., I think my tenants would be a lot happier, and I feel like my tenants are safer. So those are the two concerns that I kind of have unanswered questions that haven't been really fully addressed yet. But if anybody has answers and could get back to me at some point in time, I could weigh in, but I don't want to shoot my neighbor because he's a really good guy and I do know he needs development.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Judge, hours of operation is certainly something that the planning commission can address through the conditional use permit, so.
Yeah. As far as runoff, engineering and Aaron would be taking up that into consideration as far as the cistern underground and the drainage supplemental to that.
Yes, they had a on-site stormwater collection system that would tie into the back of the inlet that's on the west side of Sandpiper Trail. That system also has, between the duplexes and the commercial lots, a 40-foot easement with a greenway between them. And that is intercepted by a 48-inch end wall taking water into Sandpiper Trail, and then a little bit north and over to the post office pond. So it's a large system that anticipated a lot of drainage. It was engineered as an entire development in that area to be completed. So there's not really a plan to add any more to that system. It's what they do within the site. So we talked about putting in infiltration to cut down on runoff that's released in the first place, and that's per Dane County and per Chapter 160 of the 3 of the village ordinances.
I'm not sure it's working now, it's my basement floods all the time. but-
Okay. Steve, did you want to speak?
I have several questions which may or may not be able to be answered, but if we could get some answers, that would be great.
Sure.
Mr. Conrad spoke of the street, for lack of a better word, behind the CVS pharmacy to the west, and whether or not that would be extended to the east to eventually meet up with Sandpiper Trail. I wasn't able to look on the village to find anyway on the village's maps. Is that potentially a through street from the back end of CVS down to Sandpiper, which would then be behind the Casey's General Store? And if so, number one, I would like to know that. And secondly, if it is not, is there any, again, I didn't have the ability to look to see what the site plan was, some sort of privacy fence on the north side, again, addressing the residents, the backyards of the residences on Galway, whether or not there would be some sort of privacy screening, number one, to go ahead and possibly cut down on some of the noise associated with the operation of not only the convenience store, but the potential for gas pumps. And then lastly, where exactly are the fill ports going to be located for the proposed gas station? Was that on the front, the back, the north, the south? Ken?
A lot of it we have online. If you, in our packet now, is put out on the agenda as a link, but
Okay.
It'll be on there. As far as the privacy fence, I think they talked about a 7-foot privacy fence to the north.
Okay. And then the question I had about the location of the fill ports for the underground tanks is the fact that, again, if they were proposed to be on the north side of the building, or of the property rather, it would potentially be kind of a detriment to the residences. Number one, having the semi-truck idling there while they discharge their fuel and the clanking of the tank covers and so on and so forth. Those are some of the concerns there, and I also share my wife's concerns about the 24/7 operation. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Keisha Peters?
Hello. I have been a village resident for 17 years, and I've been living on Galway Terrace for 14 years. So I have a lot of the same concerns that everybody else has already addressed. Casey's will be literally in my backyard. So I am concerned about the kids going to Glacial Drumlin and the traffic coming in and out of the gas station. I'm also concerned about having a 5th gas station in Cottage Grove. Having been part of the Economic Development Committee, I'm very aware of, the need for having businesses, but, we kind of need some, in my opinion, and from what I've experienced, we need more areas for small businesses to be able to rent affordable spaces, to be able to help offset our taxes, to bring in a competition that could potentially put out existing businesses out of business. To me, is counterproductive. It doesn't seem to be answering, the need for bringing in more businesses into Cottage Grove. So bringing somebody who's going to compete with our pizza places that we already have, doesn't make sense to me. And then also the same thing with the gas stations, and then having, somebody, another place selling market things. We try to utilize the PIG so that we can have a grocery store in Cottage Grove. And if we take business away from them, are we going to be just left with a Quick Trip and a Casey's, for groceries, and have to go into town to get, into Madison to get groceries? So I just like to keep the existing businesses here and give some more diversity to other businesses that we could potentially have in Cottage Grove. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. I think that's everybody that we had registered. We do have some emails. I'm just going to read. I'm sorry?
I gave you my name.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Tom.
Tom Hornick.
Yep. If you want to come up and identify yourself. Yep.
Thank you, appreciate that. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tom Hornig, and I live at 514 Galway Terrace, immediate next door neighbor to Mr. and Mrs. Norgord. You heard from Dick briefly a few minutes ago. I'm going to do my best not to repeat what others have said, because others have covered a lot of territory, enough so that I would urge you to, when you get into your deliberations later this evening, to put the brakes on this whole project, at least for a time, to give yourselves an opportunity to fully understand what all the dynamics are here, and to possibly seek further input from some of the neighbors. I being one. I suppose my presentation can be summed up as not in my backyard. A lot of you have heard that, I'm sure, in connection with various things, but this indeed is something that is almost in my backyard, but just a ways further to the east. I'm up, somewhat up on the rise from the proposed service station. First thing I want to address is demand. I agree with the previous speakers. I don't think demand for another gas station in Cottage Grove has been proven at all. The materials base the demand upon a marketplace profile or study. Those reports are based, to my knowledge, on just very general demographic data. If you were to look at those and actually believe them, you could possibly draw the conclusion that we need 2 to 3 times more gas stations than we have now, which would be a complete absurdity. I think we'd all agree. I don't think we even need one more, but that's just my opinion, and I appreciate that. I would urge you also not to just consider that there are 4 gas stations in the village now, and this would add a 5th. I think that doesn't really give you the whole picture. Rather, I would urge you to think in terms of what gas stations and what fueling opportunities there are all the way from the I-90 interchange with N, going all the way north to the interchange with 94. And just think about the number of gas stations there are in that stretch. There's quite a number. Then, if you go the opposite way, east-west, and consider turning onto Cottage Grove Road, down at Monona Drive, and driving all the way to the intersection with N, how many fueling opportunities there are in that stretch. That really gives you an idea of what motorists are contending with in terms of getting fuel, those people coming in and going out of Cottage Grove. I think it's very clear, actually, and by the way, the number is 10 if you add up all of those opportunities in a very few miles. So I think the demand is just not present. I sympathize with Mr. Metcalf. If I had a property that was going begging for that number of years, I would be pretty desperate to get most anything in there. And I agree, I would be the same way. But it's up to this commission to decide whether or not you're going to give your imprimatur to this particular use at that particular site. And to put a third gas station in a stretch of, let's see, there's 4/10 of a mile between the first and second. There'd be another 4/10 between the McDonald's one and the new one. You're talking in 8/10 of a mile, 3 gas stations. What is that going to do for residents of Cottage Grove? I would suggest virtually nothing. I would urge you to ask your village attorney, Mr. Boucher, by the way, when you deliberate, what standards you must apply to this application. Indeed, it's my opinion that the standards are the ones that you're used to applying and not the ones that are encapsulated in the brand-new law that was passed and published on November 28th and became law on the 29th. That does not apply to this application. The reason being the application predated the effective date of the law. I trust Mr. Boucher and I will...
Tom, I'm sorry,
agree
we
on
do
that.
have to limit you to 3 minutes for public comment, but thank you.
Okay, could I just add one more thing? This is something I talked to Mr. Ruth about, who, by the way, was very kind to me in helping me try and understand this whole process. The 7-foot so-called screen wall is going to do very little for people in my immediate vicinity. The reason being that there's quite an elevation change from the floor of the proposed store up to the point where our residences are, something like 11 to 12 feet. A 7-foot wall is going to do virtually nothing, and there's no wall along the western portion at all to help screen. So I would suggest that that is not going to do much of anything for us, and I would urge you again to set this aside, at least for this evening, to give this some real thought. This is not the proper use for this lot. I'm sorry, it just isn't. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we do have some emails. I will just read who they're from, and it's regarding this. Kelly Stutz, and he or she had, stated that they are against this proposal. Chris at Door Creek Golf Course, but there's no last name, I apologize.
Christian.
Okay, thank you. Oh, there it is, okay. Also is against another gas station. Mike Tortorice, Tortoric. Okay, thank you. Owner of Anytime Fitness, I guess, in Columbus. Sent an email against. Lynn Hugill, Hugill, sent an email against this. Larry True, Megan and Larry True, also sent an email. Basically, the context is about the number of gas stations more than anything else, but we'll keep these on record. Aaron, Mike, did you have anything else as far as some of the questions that public had raised regarding screening, fuel ports, anything like that?
Well, I had one on, a question came up about the future of Sandpiper and Cottage Grove Road for traffic.
Okay.
And when Sandpiper North into Quail Highlands was constructed, there's conduits under currently the 4 legs. We added the 4th leg when Quail South was developed. So It's planned for a traffic signal for the future. And the early anticipation that that would occur was when Sandpiper would continue to Vilas Road, which is to the south. But certainly, the village will keep an eye on the warrants of that intersection. It typically requires 2 and 4 hour peak traffic on Sandpiper to be high enough to warrant stopping traffic on Cottage Grove Road. So we've been keeping an eye on different areas. So that's where School Road with the commercial development and then just tipped that this past year. So, and the signals went in.
All right. Aaron, did you have anything else on the process in here?
Yeah. Guess starting with Mr. Horning's comment about the fence, and we talked about this a little bit earlier today. Within our ordinance, there's a required amount of screening, and there's a number of different formulas that can be followed to reach that amount of screening. The fence, as proposed, is just one of those. There are other formulas that are based more on landscaping, certain numbers of landscaping points, trees and shrubs, that sort of thing. We could consider changing to one of those formulas. The trees would grow higher. The fence isn't going to grow, but the trees would and might help to address that elevation change, which I think is a valid point. Just back to some of the comp plan issues. Definitely get what Mick's saying about the location of the building on the site. I guess I would be concerned that we'd be exacerbating the effects on the neighbors if we kind of switch the site around. I guess if that means a gas station just isn't right for the corridor period, I guess that's another question that I guess I would leave that for you to decide. The demand is certainly a tricky thing to get at, and I don't present the gap analysis as the be-all and end-all. It's one set of data. I did take a look at the number of gas stations in some comparable communities today. DeForest, not including the ones on 19, which I think are technically in Windsor, I counted 6, which is about 1 for every 1,550 residents. McFarland, I counted 6 for a population of a little over 8,000, so that's 1 per every roughly 1,350. Monona, which I get is a little different because it's a little more urban, but there I counted 8, a population of about 7,800, so 1 per every about 980. Adding the 5th to Cottage Grove, which had a population currently, for the 2015 estimate of 6,639, that comes out to 1 per about 1,330, so similar to McFarland. And that's using the municipal boundaries. Obviously, there's another station right outside the boundaries, but we're also not including the town population. This also doesn't include demand from the freeway or certainly the commuting effects, which are certainly a real issue. I mean, there's no perfect set of data to analyze this. I guess one other thing to consider, this is kind of a unproven stretch of Cottage Grove Road at this point. There's a lot of pretty continuous corridor to the east, but on this side, it's really just CVS. Sometimes you just need those pioneer businesses to come in and prove that the area is feasible for business. When Stop and Go came to Annan School Road, I don't think anyone was super excited about that either, but in the years since then, we have had the UW Clinic and Rainbow. Can we say those wouldn't have come if the gas station wasn't there? I don't know, but I think the gas station helped prove the feasibility of that area for commercial. I think as much as we would all like unique, cool local businesses to come in, those usually aren't the pioneer businesses that are testing out in a new area. It's usually going to be the ones with a more of a broad demand. Those may not be as interesting or as glamorous, but it's just another thing to consider.
Just to add to that too, being that the area is not in a tax increment district, the village doesn't have the ability to incentivize this land for other development, so it's really just falls down to comprehensive plan consistency and the zoning and the process that we're going through tonight. Nick?
It's my understanding that this is part of the corridor commercial, is that correct? When I look at the map, where it's marked on there, it looks like that's part of the corridor commercial that's marked on our comp plan map.
Plan business.
So based on that, this is what really troubles me, is if you look at Chapter 9, dealing with economic development, and you look at the provision that deals with corridor commercial, this is what it says. The village desires high-quality retail and professional service development along County Highway BB west of County Highway N. Controlling the amount of auto-oriented development along this growing corridor is critical in ensuring reinvestment and redevelopment of older properties in this area. When I read this, I mean, I wasn't involved in the comp plan when it was put together, but when I read the comp plan, I come away with a vision that just does not include this type of use there. And I understand this is the only use that's come forward, but when we look at the comp plan, is it what we had in mind? Is this really what the comp plan is calling for? Is this really what we want to have here for the next 40 years? I don't see it. I just don't see it when I read the comp plan. And both in Chapter 5 and Chapter 9, I just don't see it.
All right, anything else from staff?
Just as far as some of the conditions in my report,
Aaron, just a sec, Jay, did you close the public hearing?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yep, I would
do that, and then we'll
Okay.
move on to the discussion.
All right, it's 7:32 at this time. I'll close the public hearing, and then we can continue our reports from staff.
as far as the conditions related to the site plan, by ordinance, there's a 5-foot setback required from a paved surface to the property line. It's a little bit of a different condition here, because that side drive aisle is kind of shared by, or intended to be shared by all the properties. So I think with that being the case, we can waive that. In the staff report, we recommended a sidewalk connection from Sandpiper towards the front of the building. Recommending painted crosswalks to highlight the pedestrian routes where they cross vehicle routes heading to the front of the building. The current site plan shows a sidewalk stub from Cottage Grove Road kind of coming up to the middle of the fueling area. I think we can get rid of that. I don't think that's a good place to be bringing people. We'd want a bike rack somewhere near the entry. We're looking for a joint maintenance agreement for the driveways and sidewalks that cross the property boundaries. The building signage is not dimensioned on the elevations, but it looks like it may be bigger than what we would allow for ordinance, so we just want to verify that. I guess regardless of that, it's just a reminder that any signage is going to have to come in separately for a sign permit application. Just because it's on the drawings doesn't automatically mean it's approved. And those were the main issues, other than the site plan approval should be conditioned on approving conditional use permit and vice versa. They should be.
And the conditional use permit is the first step in the process, because they'd have to have a precise implementation plan and that sort of thing after this?
No, these would be the approvals.
Okay.
It's just the site plan, it's not a plan unit.
Okay. Comments from plan members? Don, anything?
One thing we can't do is we can't always legislate all the businesses. I mean, we have multiple daycares, we have multiple pizza places, multiple insurance places, a lot of stuff. I guess I'm hearing Aaron talk about, kind of like catalyzing. I think if something would go in there, I think it would help perhaps fill in between with some sort of the lot in between there would provide or would potentially make it look viable, like Aaron said, and something in there more retail oriented between the CVS and the Casey's. I guess my only thing is, I guess I would consider the hours, looking at the hours, perhaps limiting them to what they were talking, the 5 to 11 or 4 to midnight or whatever.
Okay. Nick, anything else?
Well, here are my thoughts on it. If the owner of the property doesn't, this just does not meet Chapter 5 or Chapter 9, the way I read it. If the owner doesn't like it, then the owner should come in and ask us to change the comp plan to allow this type of a use. I think the comp plan is so clear in Chapter 9 where it talks about not having this type of a use. I mean, when you look at this, really, this is going to be a use that's going to be very much based on automobile traffic and servicing automobiles with gasoline. I find that really troubling. I don't think it meets the requirements of 5 or 9. Under the comp plan, we do have the ability to look at the impacts. And this is because of the conditional use. If this was, when you look just at the site plan, yeah, I get it. Site plan, I get it. If they were coming in without having to ask for the conditional use, no problem. The concern of it, though, is it just doesn't meet it with the pumps and how far back it's set from the street. It just doesn't meet it because of the being automobile oriented. We also have the ability on a conditional use, which we don't on the site plan use, to actually look at the impacts that this would have on other businesses. So, we don't have many opportunities to do that, but here we do. And so we can take a look at that, which I did do, which I'd like to just state tonight. I took a look at that, and if you're looking at trying to calculate what population base you really need to have a convenience store, usually the minimum is going to be 2,000 to 3,000 residents per store. So Cottage Grove doesn't hit that. I mean, you'd have to go out and beyond the boundaries of Cottage Grove to start trying to have a service area that's large enough to do that, which makes me wonder why Casey wants to come here when you can just look at it and you can see that there's not enough folks living here now to support that many stores, at least according to the research that I've been able to undertake. And then the traffic counts to me just don't make sense. I mean, you're looking at 8,000 and you have 3 stations all trying to pull from 8,000 cars a day. I don't think you'll get that much foot traffic walking down Sandpiper to make up for that. I just don't see it really working, and I see it having a detrimental impact on what will come in next door, because once you do put this in with the pumps, you have to find something that's willing to be next to a convenience store that has pumps in the front. So how do we get the rest of this area to develop out as the way we're asking it to be developed out in the comp plan? How do we get the rest of this area to develop out with pushing up onto the street? We don't. We end up with having something that looks like a lot of other areas we have here in Cottage Grove, which it'll be, a bunch of cars out in the front. It'll sit back toward the back, and you will never get that look that the village has currently in its comp plan. Unfortunately, this just doesn't fit. I mean, I feel for you, the owner, but this is not something that fits within the vision of Cottage Grove. And if we do this, we're going to affect the vision of Cottage Grove forever. We just will, because we have to, what are you going to find that's going to want to go next to them and push up? I don't know. Maybe you'll find something else. But I think it's going to be a hard sell.
Phyllis? Jennifer?
I think, to Nick's point, I think we spent a lot of time worrying about the vision of Cottage Grove and what the vision of Cottage Grove is out in the Gatorsey, and it's empty. That's a problem. My biggest concern is the hours. I don't think 24 hours is a good idea, but
The 5 to 11 thing is probably. okay.
that would make me much more comfortable.
Okay.
And I agree with a lot of what Don said.
Okay, John?
Matt, did I hear you that this is not a TIF district, so we can realize commercial taxes right off as soon as they start constructing, if this is approved?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not a TIF district?
Right.
Correct.
Got it,
Yeah.
okay. And then I want to thank the public for their appearance and attendance tonight. I think it's important beyond just understanding this particular topic. And just to reiterate, which I kind of looked into when I first joined this commission, is this commission has the responsibility for planning, the comprehensive plan that Mick alludes to, that I think is kind of, it's not a science, it's more of an art. And to Jennifer's point, I mean, if we try to build it and we can't fill it, it just sits vacant. So, and all of our recommendations are at the subject to village board approval. So if whatever we recommend tonight does not meet your liking, the village board meets twice a month, and they're the elected officials that make the final decision. You kind of pulled at my strings about a year or two ago when we had Rainbow, which is, you know, a nationwide daycare. And you have Kid Safari, Learning Ladder, local businesses that have been in the community for as long as I have, and they're pleading. But then at the end of the day, I mean, I think all businesses are doing well, and maybe the waiting lists are reduced. So to Don's point, I don't necessarily believe the planning commission should be legislating when businesses come in. And to the last point is, I've worked in communities with Casey's and traveled throughout the upper Midwest, and I know they do good work beyond building buildings, providing services and jobs. They actually give back to the communities that they serve in. So that's all I have to say.
Fred, comment?
Well, I don't want to bore everyone, but I basically agree with John and Don.
All right. I think one of my thoughts too is I really didn't know what to envision there, but the Casey's is at least something there that's going to bring in some tax dollars. And I think if you're willing to work with neighbors as far as hours and screening and different plans of screening and things like that, I'm not opposed to it, I'll at least say that. I guess, is there any other comments from plan members? Yep.
Motion.
Okay. Motion to approve the application for a conditional use permit for an in-vehicle sales and service land use gas station and fuel pumps from Casey's General Store on parcel 071108141-201 northwest corner of West Cottage Grove Road and Sandpiper Trail. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Before you do that,
I
just-
did, I'm sorry.
Second.
Yep.
I assume that's with the conditions.
With the conditions set forth by staff and engineering.
Did you want to address the
Hours.
screening issue?
Yeah, I mean, I guess could you outline what our options are? I mean, evergreens, arborvitae, different fence?
I like the trees.
They all have different amounts of points, you just have to get the right amount of points per
Mhm.
100 feet. There's a bunch of different ways to do it.
Okay. Would you be open to doing something with the trees versus a fence, or in addition to maybe, if that?
The only reason we didn't provide trees at the start is supposed the fence was that area was going to be used for water discharge from the site into the existing drainage area right there, and just the integrity of the trees. You know, if that water would damage them at all. But since then, we've kind of had to rethink our overall stormwater management plan, I
Okay.
think, and we're going to keep more things on site as opposed to discharging outside. So I don't think the trees is going to be an issue. It's like we know the point system. I went over with Aaron when we were designing the plan. So
There is a landscape plan in the civil set.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of documents attached to this, but it's in there. You kind of got to go through it all.
There is a landscape plan that meets the requirements for the buildings and everything else, and that includes the screening fence. But if we need to update that for more trees, that would provide better screening.
If it's landscaping in lieu of the fence, it would be landscaping in addition to
I'm gonna say though,
landscaping.
if you don't have the fence, you're gonna have kids coming to the store and running through yards.
All right.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Can look at a combination of.
Can the hours be
I was gonna ask.
Where do we
that too.
address the hours? Is
Can we-
that added to the conditional use?
We can do that in a conditional use as far as I'm aware. Lee, right?
Well, we can, but I think that what, some of the direction that I'm hearing from the Plan Commission too is to the applicant and asking the applicant to be aware of the comprehensive plan. I mean, mixed points and some of the points that have come out are good ones in the sense that they're, you put a lot of time into your comprehensive plan. And you've asked the comprehensive, you've set out certain standards. And so maybe there's some direction to the applicant to try to tweak this plan to try to bring that more in compliance with what we've
If we approve with the condition of the hours 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., and if they want to change it, they'd have to come back and revisit? Is that, how would that work?
That's not what Lee's getting at.
You're talking broader.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I think that Mick is, and I don't mean to cite Mick, but he's the one who said it. So, your comprehensive plan and your zoning code set up the rules of the game.
Mhm.
And we expect people to follow those rules. And so, if you're going to deviate from those, or if you're going to go a certain way, I think you need to identify why you are, and also reach out to the applicant to say, okay, you heard those concerns, are there some modifications that you could potentially make?
Okay. All right. Keisha, you got a quick comment?
Yeah, I know that it's just closed, but, yeah, because that comprehensive plan was something, like we bought our house being told that what was gonna be behind us was gonna be business, it was gonna be developed, but it was gonna be a strip mall with businesses like a Cost Cutters or a, a Subway or some type of small businesses. That's why we bought our house. We didn't buy our house. We specifically asked what was gonna be behind us, because if we were told the gas stations were gonna be there, we would have bought our house, because that's gonna make it hard for us to sell our house.
Trouble is, nobody knows that long ago or that far ahead what's actually going to be there. If they try to tell you they do, I think they're grasping at
Well, my builder is the owner of the land, so,
Yeah.
I mean, he told me what he planned, what was planned for that development. We spoke,
Okay.
he lived next door to us, so, at the time, so.
All right.
Jack, just, I give a real long-winded answer to a question, and let me just confirm, unlike so many times with an attorney, but as I indicate, the comp plan is important. It needs to be taken into consideration. It sets forth certain rules and regulations. Now, you have Aaron as the planner saying he feels that this plan is in compliance with or this submittal is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. So it depends upon how you interpret it. Just want to make sure that people understand that that's what I'm trying to get at here.
Okay.
I have a question though for Lee. When I look at chapter 325, and I look at section, let's see, what is it here? It's going to be under E. No, it's under F. Toward the bottom of that paragraph, it says, any action to amend the provisions of this proposed conditional use or reverse the recommendation of the Plan Commission requires 5 votes of the board, regardless of quorum size. The way I read that, when this goes to the board, it's going to take a supermajority to change anything.
Right.
So even if the applicant wanted to make a change, it's in stone.
Well, that's why I'm saying tonight, if the applicant is willing to work with staff before this is actually approved, then that this is the time to make any of those changes. You're right, because otherwise you can have a supermajority on the village board, or you'll need a supermajority on the village board to get any kind of change.
Okay. And as the applicant, you're willing to work with Aaron and make some screening changes based on what you heard tonight? I mean, that's.
Understanding that we would need to agree to those hours today in order to get that approval.
I think that's probably what you're hearing.
I think
I
Lee's
think the way I
going
look at it
beyond
is
that.
It needs to come back.
Yeah.
The way I read this, we can't add anything to this once it's approved. That is it. So what's approved tonight is it. And it goes to the board, right? And it'll take 5 votes to change it.
And let me say, we have run into this recently with the preliminary plat and the final plat. And so this is very similar to that, except this is even more explicit of what, whatever you approve tonight is what the approval is going to be. So if you're going to request them to work with staff, then table this, or you get specific on what you would like to see changed.
Okay.
If you do, if you want.
I mean, I'm fine with the way it's presented. It's up to you. I mean, we have motion and a second to approve, so.
Are we in discussion then?
Yep.
I think we need those hours addressed. I mean, if this is set in stone, we need those hours addressed.
If you want to withdraw the motion, we can ask them to come back next month and work with staff. Would
Well,
you be willing?
we've got a motion and a second, if I understand, and you can complete the discussion on this before you decide what you want to do. Because I'd like us to be specific in terms of if we're going to tell them, we want you to work with staff, well, what do you want them to work with staff on? I mean, is there, I think we have to be specific on it.
Is it fair to say work with staff on hours and screening at this
Well,
point?
I mean, that could be solved tonight.
Yeah.
If it's something more than that, I think then we'd have to go back, but if it's just hours and
Right.
screening.
I mean, that's the main concerns I would have.
But is the business, I mean, in a position to decide tonight whether you can adhere to those hours, or do you have to go back?
I would like to
Exactly.
go back and have those conversations.
Okay.
So should I withdraw
I
my
would,
motion?
yeah.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, and second withdraws. So I'll make a motion to table till the next.
Could we, let's see if we can complete our discussion here, because I know that I thought I heard a couple of salmon arm raises to be recognized, so.
Okay.
I just want to point out a few things. One, if you look at the purpose of Chapter 325 dealing with conditional uses, and it talks about the review and approval procedures, under the purpose section, it says in section 3, under this chapter, a proposed conditional use shall be denied unless the applicant can demonstrate to the satisfaction of the village that the proposed conditional use will not create undesirable impacts on nearby properties, the environment, nor the community as a whole. And I just want to point that out. We need to, think. I hope people really think about this, because we've heard testimony tonight by the people that are really going to be impacted by this. As you've heard, my interpretation of the comp plan is that the vision is different than what's happening tonight, which I think is not really fair to the folks that live behind it. And I just have some real concerns about it.
Okay.
Having worked on some of the comp plans, I think the auto was more geared towards auto repair, because a lot of the auto repair places tend to collect massive amounts of vehicles and stuff like that, so I don't believe it was aimed at convenience stores. I think my recollection is that was aimed at auto repair specific type places.
I think you're correct on that.
Salvage yards, because we had
Right.
that issue.
Right.
But then I propose the question, what was the vision when you were wanting to not have setbacks, having setbacks that were quite a ways away from the street? And when the comp plan talks about having the buildings pushed up toward the street, how does that fit in with what we're seeing tonight? I mean, I don't see it. I see a different vision in the comp plan for what was to occur here than what we're looking at.
Is there a date on that section of the comp plan when that was done?
Mm-hmm.
I
don't know, I just printed it off today. So
Yeah, I'm just curious.
it's out there.
Should say in the bottom corner. I looked at it too. I think it was 2014 is when it was.
So it's not terribly old, but.
The other part of that is, I think a lot of that is if the opportunity is there to do it. I don't think it was cast in stone on anything that I worked on.
Right.
It was, if the opportunity was there, we would look at doing that, but
A plan is a plan. It's kind of like a whiteboard. You kind of got to go with and see if you can make it work as things come along. You can't carve in stone 10 years out.
Well, I would propose that we table it, and if the owner wants to work with his architect or whoever it is, the proposed business, and try to present something different that addresses our concerns, that would be the best thing to do, rather than kill it right now.
Right,
And
I agree.
And I don't necessarily want to see it just rammed through either.
Right.
So,
Is that a motion to table?
oh, aren't we still in discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just kind of gauging the feel for people.
Okay.
So like Lee said, we need to be more specific. We can't just say, we just can't be vague.
Right.
Right. I mean, the hours in the screening and,
What are the other concerns? I mean, we know what mixed concerns are, but.
Well, we have concerns that it, or at least some of the members have concerns that it doesn't follow our comp plan.
Mhm.
So I don't know if they can do something that will follow our comp plan.
But I don't think we want the building up front. I know we don't
Well-
want the building
Right.
up front and gas pumps and back.
No, certainly
That I
not.
know.
Yeah.
That just makes.
if they were to follow our
exacerbates the
comp
problem.
plan, the traffic would or the cars would interfere with neighbors in the back, so.
And the reason I brought that up is because I don't think it fits. And if you try to go with what the vision is, I think under the comp plan, this does not work because you would not have pumps behind, and you would not have pumps in front.
Right. Anything else? Okay. As far as traffic, I think Mike was talking about the warrants for a stop and go light at some point would be looked at, but that could be down the road.
Would be, I think, it's been a couple of years and counts haven't changed a lot there, but, we programmed in, after stop and go, the Rainbow Daycare and,
Mhm.
other businesses that are being discussed, and that was the trigger, I guess, for it.
Okay. All right.
I actually have a question, I don't know if this is, those are not currently, what do you call it? School patrol crosswalks, correct?
Crossing guards?
Crossing guards, yes.
I don't think
They're
so.
not.
Because they're one direction,
Yeah,
and they don't cross the Cottage Grove right?
right. And
That's
I think
why, okay.
with crossing guards, we've got to the point where we couldn't get people, so we we have school personnel doing it, but we pay them. I think that's
The
kind of.
children are meant to cross at the stop and go lights up at Damascus.
Right, and but is that?
That is patrol.
Correct, so only if they cross Cottage Grove Road are they patrol. It's N in Cottage Grove Road that triggers a patrol right now.
Right, although technically, I believe Cottage Grove Road is considered hazardous
Right.
by the definition of,
Right,
I believe, state law.
Okay.
just curious.
Any other comments? Questions? I mean, would you be willing to come back next month?
Well, I guess I have a question to clarify.
Sure.
So if we can commit to these hours today, and if we were to get approval to move forward, if in the future, if there's anticipated growth, if that happens, as we believe that it will, and we'd like to see those hours changed to meet a plan that we can anticipate will be there, the process then would be to go to the board and get 100% approval for those change hours. Is that how I
I think that would have to.
Be to change the conditional use permit, so it would basically be this,
Yeah.
this process.
You'd come back here and then it would go to the village board, just like this process, I think. You would come back to the plan commission and then we make a recommendation to the village board, like, when they meet. So it's a two-step process. Yeah.
I would like to then, instead of tabling this, I would like to move forward and say that we can commit to those hours as part of the
Okay.
conditional use.
Sounds good.
And the screening.
We can commit to the screening too.
Okay.
And the hours are from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
That's what we would propose,
Okay.
How late is the quick trip open?
Quick Trip's 24.
Or not the quick trip, the stop and go by McDonald's?
I'm not sure.
10:30 or 11, I believe.
I
Yeah.
looked it up, and it's 5 to 11.
5 to 11. Okay. You reinstate your motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve with those terms.
Okay, and I'll second it to approve with those terms as well.
And incorporating staff recommendations.
And
Correct.
yes, and incorporate staff recommendations. Okay? Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay.
Could we have a,
We'll have to do roll call vote now.
Aye.
Nick?
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay, so that's 4 to 3. So motion passes 4 to 3. Okay?
okay, just on the, just to make sure. Don, you were an aye.
Correct.
Mick, you were a nay.
Yes.
Jack
Aye.
is an aye, okay. Phyllis
Nay.
is a nay. Okay. Jennifer
Aye.
and John
Aye.
and Fred.
Nay.
So I got 4 to 3.
Okay.
Everybody good with that? All right.
All right. So, motion is passed, and this will be at the village board meeting, which is next Monday?
That was for the conditional use permit, the site plan review.
Okay.
I'm sorry, when is the village board meeting?
First and third Mondays, Monday the 18th, 6:30. All right, and at this point, and item number 8, I'll make a motion to approve the application for site plan approval from Casey's General Store for convenience store gas station on parcel 0171108141201, northwest corner of West Cottage Grove Road and Sandpiper Trail. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any
I'd
other?
like a voice vote, please.
Sure.
How about discussion?
Well,
Discussion first, I mean, this is just part of the process, goes hand in hand with number 7.
Yeah, I just, on that, we just, I don't know if the lighting, the cutoff, I didn't know if that's in the packet.
I think there's a photometric in here
Is there a
somewhere.
photometric in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there in the photometric that they have is sufficient and it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure
All right.
that was in there, and,
All right. So roll call vote, John?
Sure. Aye.
Nick?
No.
Aye.
Nay. Aye.
Aye. Fred?
nay.
4 to 3, motion passes.
Lisa, you want to verify that? I'm not doing any more verifications on it.
Yep, I'm just gonna catch up here a second. So we have Don, I, Mick, no, Jack, I, Phyllis, no, Jennifer, I, John, I, and Fred, no. So it passes 4 to 3.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any questions, feel free to get in touch with staff or myself. All right, comments from commission members, Don?
Just want to recognize, yesterday Butch Butler passed away. He was on the planning commission.
Forever.
And he was our erosion control inspector, and
Yep.
Many citations.
Miss Butch, he was never afraid to voice his opinion on a matter.
No.
We all recall. But,
Yeah.
so we can think of Butch.
All right. Nick? Okay, I have no report, Phil. Jennifer?
I think I'm good.
John?
Yeah, a couple items. One, I'd like to recognize Aaron. I think this was,
Folks, there's still a meeting going on.
Can we hold it on, please? Thank you.
there was, this is probably the most comprehensive staff report and planning package that I've seen since I've been on the commission for 2+ years. So this is the type of information that doesn't make the decision any easier, but it makes you more informed. One other favor, or just maybe discussion point, that if a letter goes to residents for something like this, maybe if we can get copied, because I found out about it on social media via text.
Okay.
And I don't know if the board members receive it as well, but it's probably, you're probably a little more prepared rather than just getting blindsided.
Okay.
And then kind of a point of clarification, so we're going back a couple meetings, but there was a planning commission, and I know I asked you, Jack, but I kind of want to ask it in open forum. So it was a 3-3 tie, and I thought a tie was a die, but that means that no recommendation from this commission allows the board to still vote on a topic?
Correct. Planning commission makes a recommendation to the village board.
Yep, so, and I'm not trying to be funny here, but I mean, like last meeting, we met for 5 minutes to discuss a sign, which to me was kind of a no-brainer, but I mean, did we need the commission to meet? And why didn't the board, I mean, could the board not act on that? And I'm learning myself.
I think just to cover all the bases we had to.
I think
Well, Aaron can ask about the sign,
The sign,
For the bank.
typically, I would review the sign personally when they're asking for some kind of variance or waiver. And for the ordinance, it comes to the plan commission. It doesn't also go to the board.
all signs used to, or most signage used to come to plan commission, and that ordinance was changed to allow staff if it's within certain parameters to take care of it. If it falls outside of that, then it comes back here.
So it just comes here, or does it come here and then the board?
Only here.
Could we have done that via email vote, or must we do a public vote? Like I said, I'm not trying to be funny here.
I wish we had done it email.
5-minute meeting for.
John, I don't think you can do it by email. I'd have to look at that, but Aaron, we talked about it, looked at the language, and I understand that it's an inconvenience, but we're just trying to err on the side of caution and.
It's one of those things where staff might be like, oh, this is a no-brainer, and then, but all it takes is a couple board members or plan commission members to think differently, and then,
Right.
It's not worth the risk if it doesn't meet that code.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yep.
I'm out of time, but to the social media point, I mean, maybe we should be putting these letters on our Facebook
Cottage
page.
Grove community and
that-
Priscilla's work.
I mean, if we're not allowing people to comment on our Facebook page, I mean, that's where people go. to
Well, they
get
are allowed to
information.
comment on the Facebook page, we just don't
Oh.
interact.
Okay. I mean, is there a way to do that?
Lisa?
I don't believe that there is.
There isn't,
No.
okay. I, too, am not trying to be funny. Just that,
I agree.
that's where everybody goes for their information, whether it's true or not,
They do.
Well,
We can post, we can certainly
Post
post
a
it.
link to the agenda. So.
A link, yeah, something.
But that won't replace the actual notice that we
Oh,
send out.
obviously, obviously.
For legal purposes, yeah.
Just the more people that we can get engaged in the process,
Yep.
I mean, I
Because the
think
letter
the
must,
better.
the letter must have went out before
Right.
the agenda
And
was
people,
received.
no matter what the ordinance is, if people feel they should know and they didn't get a letter and other people did, people get bent out of shape over that. Right or wrong. It's irrelevant.
Couple things. I agree with John. It'd be great if we could be notified when some sort of letter, public notice goes
Yeah, that'd be
out.
helpful.
And then I do think that whether it's us or the full board, I'm a little confused on that, but the ordinance should be changed regarding notification. Number of feet is obsolete, in my opinion. You should look at, homes within a certain radius, businesses within a certain radius, or something like that.
Okay.
Because this is like the 4th time since I've been on this commission that the residents most affected by it complained about lack of notice, so.
Okay.
Oh, that needs to be put in the budget so that the ordinance can.
More stamps.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why,
Right.
if we could use.
We need to.
They'll still get complaints from the people that are just outside of that range.
Of course.
You're always
Yeah.
gonna get that.
Yeah.
I mean, 200 feet isn't very far.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm fine with putting that on a future agenda item if we want to talk about it for next time.
You bet.
Okay. So we'll put the notification radius on a future agenda item. Anything else for future agenda?
Well, in the future, the state legislature passed Act 67, which deals with conditional use permits. And it took effect on November 28th, so this application came in before that, but there are a number of bills that I would say are attempting to limit the amount of discretion that municipalities have. So we'll be looking at our conditional use permit section in light of the bill and making a report to you.
Okay.
Another thing would be that I'm going to make sure that Lisa does the counting from now on, so that and I want us to also adopt a procedure where we do have a summary at the end, and this isn't really necessarily just for here, but also at the village board, which is you do think it's a simple, okay, I counted this, well, what did you say? And we don't want there to be any issues as far as that's concerned. So if you want to follow along with Lisa, we can do that, but she's the clerk, and I want to make sure that she gets that opportunity. So, and Don, I appreciate that you said something about Butch, because a visit by Butch to any of these meetings always kind of set my heart going, and I had asked him could you call me and tell me that you're coming and what it's about so I could have the answer? And he goes, No, it's better to.
Lee was outside the 200 feet, so he didn't.
Yeah, right, I never got noticed. And he'd say, no, I kind of like to see the look on your face when I ask some of these questions. And I said, okay, great. But he gave a lot of his time to the village, and it's a lot, definitely a lot, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Just a comment about, certainly we pay attention to the Facebook posts, and a lot of times you get good feedback that way. And we're also asking questions through that Polco service, as we'll continue to do too, which can give us even better verified information from registered voters. And I guess as much as you all can do when you're talking with folks, and maybe they mention, oh, instead of a gas station, why don't we have such and such
Taco
there?
Bell?
Well, I only bring it up because it's not a choice.
Right.
We're not sitting here with either this or that. I mean, this is an applicant that gets to go through the process. Staff doesn't just say no if it meets certain parameters. So I think as much education on that is helpful. Because if the village doesn't own the land, and if it's not in a tax increment district for incentives, there's not
tax dollars.
There's not a lot else we can do. But yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
Mick?
for sure.
I just want to say I know landowners in Madison have been waiting over 20 years to get approval on sites. So if it's something that you feel strongly enough about, sometimes it's worth waiting.
Sure.
I just got my tax bill today.
Coming to board of review?
Yeah.
So Lee, you also indicated you were gonna put something together on public hearings as far as people speaking, or you had indicated that?
Yeah, I'm in the process for the village board and for all of the boards, commissions, and committees, just kind of come up with some revisions to how we do things, or at least codify how we do things. And so that's an ongoing process.
And it's hard to do, and it's hard being in Jack's shoes.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
because then you
it's-
end up with the audience firing back questions, and it's not structured the way I think it
Well,
should
one
be.
of the things I'm suggesting is that I want to give a script to whoever it is that's running the meeting in a general sense to say, because I think that whether we have one person sitting out there, no people, or 300 people, we should say the same thing, which is, please limit your discussion to 3 to 5 minutes or whatever number you pick.
Right.
And get those rules done ahead of time. And so
Yeah.
that's really the thought behind.
And the other thing I spoke with Lee about is nobody's going to sign up to speak and then donate their time to somebody else, because that part of what took this off the rails the other night. It's they speak or we move on.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not the United Nations.
They sign up to speak, but then they say, oh, donate my time to him so he can talk longer. Yeah.
No, but I would like to see limiting of the firing of questions, if you will.
They shouldn't be firing questions from the
And
audience.
I think if one thing is that perhaps the architect and the business, the real estate person, whatever, they probably should have stayed up here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, either that or we should have someplace, a lectern or something for someone to stand at.
Sure.
Because if you're going to have them sit there,
Right.
I mean, if I'm in the audience, I don't know if I should come up or not.
Right.
That's a good point. Lectern would be a good.
Which I think is
addition.
how the city of Madison
Yeah, and maybe then people there'd be more respect for the formal process.
And part of the logic for having the applicant up first and not limiting their time is maybe somebody's questions will get answered in the presentation, but as you heard tonight, they asked some of the questions that were already answered. But
I think it would be a good idea to mention the not speaking from the audience at the
Yeah.
beginning. When you open it, questions are not allowed from the audience, you get your time. You
Yep.
set the ground rules, just like, anything else.
when you're done, you're done.
Yeah.
Just one point, like tonight on this conditional use, the applicant has to carry 100% the burden. We don't need to carry the burden. Applicant had to prove tonight that they had a right to this. So that's why, I think it's really important that we give them the opportunity to do that.
Sure.
And to do it in the way they want to do it. And then, we can open it up for questions. We can always ask them to come back up and
Yep.
answer questions.
Right,
Yeah.
they were answering questions.
No, I agree with you. I think
Yeah,
that's difficult.
The other aspect of that is, once we decide on the rules, then I need everybody to buy into them, because I've seen happen out here. I know one village president who lost his position because we had a big meeting, a lot of people sitting out there, and he said, I'd been talking to him about it for about a year, and then suddenly he kind of blurts out, well, okay, everyone's limited to 3 minutes. And the room just went berserk. And then he said, well, he told me that I should say that, so that was even better. But it's important that that you're not surprised, because some people, like we were, some people were surprised by that. So I want to make sure that everybody, knows what the rules are, has had a chance to look at them, buys into them, and I think we'll have a good process.
I think there should be a timer, to be honest.
I mean, it's in 12-point font on the bottom of the form.
I think there should be a timer.
I've done
Yeah.
it when I've run public meetings before, I
Yeah.
have somebody time.
Yeah, I just try to watch the clock and hopefully keep it within 5 or 10 seconds, one way or the other, but, okay. Anything else from staff? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn, non-debatable. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned, thank you.